So we discussed manual and TTL. Now we're going to discuss zooming the flash head. So the flash head, this little guy, basically can spread the light like a big cone out this way, or it can spread, or it can be like a little laser beam. It would just be a little tiny beam of light coming out, okay? Why would that be important? Here's why. Here's how I use that feature. At receptions, if I'm shooting a wedding, I zoom the flash as hard as I can. So this Canon 600 EXRT can go from like 14 millimeters on the wide angle panel all the way to 200 millimeters. So if you put a 200 millimeter lens and you zoom it to 200 millimeters, it's like a tiny little angle of view. You can make this flash head just illuminate that tiny little angle of view. So what I do is I put a wide angle lens, like a 24 to 70 or a 16 to 35, and I zoom the flash head to 200 millimeters, okay? When there is the first dance happening or the father-daughter dance or whatever, I point my flash at the couple at 200 millimeters, and it looks like there's a nice spotlight on them, and the rest gets vignetted beautifully around them. Because if you don't do that, if you let the flash zoom do it automatically, it's going to illuminate the whole scene, and that's where it looks flat. If you look at my reception photos, there's like a beautiful natural vignette to them, where the audience or the guests look like they're in this moody darkness, but they're still lit, but the couple looks perfectly exposed. Does that make sense? So zooming the flash head to me is crucial. Another way you would want to zoom the flash head, let me see here. You can sit down if you want. I'm going to chill for a bit. In Nikon flashes, there is no radio transmission, okay? There is no radio transmission. It's line of sight. When this light fires, if you're doing groups, when this light fires, this light has to see this light for this light to fire too. Whenever you're outdoors, if you're shooting with two different flashes, one flash on the camera working as a commander, okay, and the other flash working as a slave or an off-camera flash, the only time this is going to fire is when it sees the flash of this one. Cool? So one thing that I do, if I'm outdoors, sometimes the flash gets confused between the sunlight and the flashlight. So when the flash fires, this one says, I don't see anything, because it's bright daylight. So I zoom the flash head to 200 millimeters, and then that gives it so much more power. This flash goes, whoa, I see it, and then it fires. Does that make sense? So that's one good way to use the zoom flash head there. The next feature that these Speedlights have, we've gone over manual and we've gone over TTL. We've gone over zooming the flash head. There's a button right there called zoom, and you can push it. And actually, I don't have a camera here. Let me see. I don't know if I can do this. You have a good exposure there? Okay, I'm at 70 millimeters because my lens is at 70 millimeters. So it tries to read. But I'm going to go to the zoom, and I'm going to say, I don't want 70 millimeters. I want 200 millimeters. Now it's 200 millimeters. So now the output is going to be this little spotlight look. Let me see if I can fire. Let me fire there real quick. Amanda, can you stand in front of that red wall over there? Can I go on that red wall? I think. Is Scary gonna kill me? Oh, I think. Okay, it's gonna be, I'm gonna go to 200 millimeter zoom on the flash. And it looks like a little spotlight, as you can see on the photo there. See that spotlight? And that's why it's great for father-daughter dance or first dance or anything where you want to feature somebody and you want to make the rest a little darker, and you don't want to do it in Lightroom or Photoshop. Just do it this way. Then now I'm going to zoom I'm going to zoom out the flash head from 200 to 35 or whatever I'm at. See, here we go. Now you have a wider angle of view on the photo there. Good. Now we're going to go from 28 millimeters, and we're going to bring it all the way down. And this should illuminate the whole scene pretty good. Well, sort of good.
Roberto, I got a question.
Yeah.
So for, say, a wedding reception, if you have your additional speed lights off camera,
yeah,
would that be a good idea to use that zoom feature just because it's putting a more concentrated rim light, or it's...
It is a good idea. I do zoom my flash heads and I point them at the couple. Right. During dancing, sometimes I actually leave the zoom pretty zoomed in throughout the entire reception, except when people are going crazy dancing a lot and there's like 1,000 people in the room. I still do that, but I go to, let's say I'm shooting at 24 millimeters, I would zoom the flash to like 50. Like I wouldn't go to 200. And the reason is, I don't want to feature 2 people and then the rest is all dark. So what I want to do is kind of give you like a feeling of the dance floor. But also in the outskirts, if there's not a lot of action happening, I want it to be darkened. So it looks like the part that's illuminated is like full of action. Okay? Zooming the flash head can make the photo look like it's a lot more active, like it's like a nightclub in there. So, good. Zooming the flash, rotating, yes.
Another question related from ARM. Does the millimeters in the flash zoom correspond to the millimeters of the lens that you're using, or is that something completely different?
No, it totally does, yeah. So it matches whatever you have, or it tries to match it. So if you're at 24 millimeters, the flash says, okay, I'm gonna go to 24 millimeter zoom. If you have a 70-200 millimeter lens and you put it at 135, then the flash will say, I'm gonna zoom to 135, okay? It tries to match it.
So how does zoom, when you're bouncing light, how does the zoom affect when you're bouncing light?
Well, it doesn't affect, it just puts it will be a stronger beam of light because the output is more concentrated, right? You're going from this much to only a little narrow, so it's bouncing a lot stronger. Remember yesterday we spoke about the angle of incidence equals the angle of reflection? That will play there, because if your beam of light is a tiny little narrow beam, then the angle is more sensitive. Does that make sense?
Yep, totally.
But if your flash is like wide and is spreading light everywhere, when that big spread hits a wall, it's also going to bounce in a big spread. So that's a good question, because that allows you to get a lot of different looks. If you ever see me shooting a job, whether it's fashion or editorial or weddings, I am zooming the flash head back and forth, back and forth. I'm like 24, 80, 100, 200, 24, 50. Like I'm switching the flash output constantly. That's one of those techniques that when people see my work, they say your photos look like super clean and beautiful. And like it looks like there's no flash at all. And that is because I'm always working the flash, zooming the flash head, zooming it out, giving me the exact look I want.